Call the meeting to order, please. If Councilor Mercia would lead us in the council prayer, please.
Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen.
Will you please honor our nation's flag? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Laurie.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Madonza.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Nguyen.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. I'd recognize at this time Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for Timothy J. Ebacker. Tim is a former member of the Board of Appeals here in the city, a well-known lawyer who passed away at a young age from cancer last week. He is survived by his wife, Ellen, and also by his father, Rudolph, and his mother predeceased him, Vivian Ebacker. Tim gave great years of service to the Board of Appeals. He was a champion of the city, always an advocate for good things happening here. He was an avid supporter of the UMass Lowell hockey team. His contributions were significant, and he will be missed.
Thank you, Councilor. Would you all please rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers? May you rest in peace. We have under the city clerk's portion of the agenda minutes of the city council meeting March 6th for acceptance. Motion by Councilor Laurie, second by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. We have under unfinished business, before I read this for the first time, I'll just clarify a rule. It was mentioned last week about objecting to the second reading. There, of course, has to be a first reading. But there also, that is only intended for motions which are up for final passage that night. That's to prevent, obviously, something from being rushed through. In other cases, it doesn't actually apply. So we're going to do the first reading tonight, and then hopefully refer that, if everyone's ready for it, we'll refer that to a public hearing for April 3rd. So motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Madonza, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. In City Council, a loan order refinancing outstanding bonds for interest cost savings. In City Council, March 6th, 2012. We're now on March 13th, 2012, for acceptance. Excuse me. So that would be a motion then to refer to a public hearing for April 3rd. Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have, under the city manager's portion of the agenda, communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In our package, we had some great news from Teresa Park regarding a growing solar company that finds new headquarters in the city of Lowell. I'm very grateful for that. Whenever we have a new business coming into the city, it's always a good evening. The American Capital Energy, ACE, it's a leading U.S. solar power, electric power integrator and developer. It has outgrown its current location, and it chose and selected the city of Lowell at their new headquarters at 1011 Pawtucket Boulevard. I'm very grateful to hear that news, so good job. Hope they spread the word that we're a good place to come and have your business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was what I wanted to bring up too, was the American Capital Center. When I was campaigning last year, I talked to one company that had already, I think, signed a lease up in Nashua and was ready to go up, and the city manager went up with the DPD, and I guess Teresa Park was responsible for this one, and I just want to say congratulations. One other thing before we go on, that was in the packet this week, and that was something from the city solicitor, if I may. It was on the sex offenders at the library, the recent ruling. The way you wrote it up, limiting it looks like we'd have a better chance to stay on. I don't know how that ordinance is written, if it's just a library. I'd like to see if we could expand it to senior centers, school zones, parks, public places like that. I would like to see if we can take that ordinance and really spread it out. You know, the library had its own situations, but I really don't think they should be anywhere near the parks, the senior centers, school zones, and anything like that. If we could work that into the ordinance, and just like your opinion.
Madam Solicitor.
Sure, we can take a look at that. The update to the council, the underlying ordinance, and I can provide a copy to new members of the council. The new decision, the latest decision, really highlights the debate that the council sort of went through in terms of a total ban versus a more just restrictive measures at the library, which seems to be the way that communities would be encouraged to go where there is an issue of constitutional implications, such as a library. Some of these other places that you've mentioned, such as parks, also raise issues of constitutional implications, or have constitutional implications. There's also a larger issue in terms of communities having enough avenues available to them. There was a community that contacted me probably 2-3 months ago that had a total ban on a number of different areas, and they were in fact being sued. But we can certainly look at that to see what types of, based on this decision, what types of ways we can possibly expand, and if that makes sense.
Thank you. I've been following the Attleboro case now for some time, and they haven't really been challenged. And then when I saw I have a great deal of respect for you, and in the way you wrote the ordinance, it looks like you did a great job, and I just want to say congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Getting back to the solar company, ACE, congratulations, and I do want to thank Teresa Parks and Adam and DPD. I know we sit here week after week and ask, and talk about getting more economic development and bringing jobs in and so on, and good job. This was a nice catch, and I'm sure this takes some time, so I appreciate their patience and tolerance of us constantly asking for more, and good job delivering. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Well, thank you. Thank you to all the councilors for raising this issue. It is another piece of good news for the city to have another business choose to locate here. As Councilor Laurie indicated, we've had businesses that were looking to go out elsewhere, and we hear are going elsewhere, and we track them down and we bring them in, or we have businesses that are located elsewhere, including in the state of New Hampshire, that have chosen to move to Lowell based upon the what they know of the city, and then what we can tell them more about the benefits of being here in the city. This particular business is going to bring 25 new jobs into the city, or relocate into the city, and they're hoping to double their size of employment over the course of the near future. So it means obviously filling up empty space and the revenues that come with that. But very important to us is the opportunities for employment for our residents here in the city that will come as a result of this. And I can assure the council and the public that our efforts continue. And we're talking to a number of very large businesses right now that are looking at the city of Lowell, and we think the chances are very good that they will choose the city of Lowell to locate. As I said before, one of our biggest challenges has been the availability of space that businesses look to move to the city, and unfortunately we don't necessarily have the type of space that they're looking for, but we're moving on that front as well. So I appreciate the comments, and it is certainly good news for the city.
Thank you. Councilman Mendonça.
Yep, there are several items in the packet of interest this week, beginning with the first item regarding the consolidating our work order system. You mentioned in your summary that you'll be instituting a new Munis module, and there's a cost to that. Question to the manager through the mayor is, have you identified funds in the current fiscal year to do that, or will that be an FY13 funding?
That will be FY13. We don't necessarily, we've done some other improvements this year to our system, but this particular is not included. I should note that this comes as a response to the motion regarding the school, but particularly the school work order system.
Yes.
The system that we're moving on, and is one that we've been working on for some time to really bring together, consolidate all of our work orders throughout the city. And it's a better way of managing our resources and tracking the work that's taking place. And in addition, it benefits us in terms of when outside agencies are funding some of our work. It's a better way to track that type of data.
Yeah, that was a follow-up question of mine, which is that it is a considerable cost. And in your analysis so far, have you seen it as potential savings in effectiveness and efficiencies?
Absolutely. If we can better manage the employees doing this work, or the outside people doing this work, then it certainly will benefit us in the long run. Out of the total amount, $74,000 to manage literally millions of dollars of work, we see as being a good investment.
And this would be a one-time cost, or is there a recurring cost to it?
It's one-time cost.
One time. Very good. The other item is the double polls. So you got a speedy response on this. I'm very pleased. But it does indicate that there are over 400 double poles in the city. Understandably, these occur often as a result of accidents not under the control of National Grid or the utility pole owner, but still, given a reasonable amount of time, they should be able to repair it, especially given the fact that according to National Grid, 194 of those are ready to be removed, which means there's no wires attached to them. So it's just a matter of them getting there and removing that extra pole. And also there was about 50 some odd locations where they're waiting for the city to remove their alarm system wires. So I am very pleased that how speedily you got this. And I would ask that going forward, maybe we get a new list on a quarterly basis, and then we could check and make sure that none of them are there from the previous list, because given 90 days, well, that might be difficult given on how long it is, but that is one thing that wasn't in the report, is how long the pole has been there. So, but over time, I suspect that with multiple quarterly reports, that the same location should not be, after 2 reports, should not be there.
Correct.
And there was the other motion about resolution supporting legislation so that we'd be able to penalize them if they do remain in place for too long. So thank you for getting this back to us very quickly.
Mr. Manager.
Regards to resolution, we'll be pulling that together for the council. With regards to the how long it takes to do some of this, I think it's important for everyone to know that this is a problem that's been recognized statewide. Part of the issue is that, as I think it's pointed out, as Council yourself pointed out, in some cases the issue is the city. In other cases, it's Verizon. In other cases, rare cases, it's Comcast. And one of the issues I know that the utilities encounter, whether it's Verizon that owns the poles or National Grid that owns the poles, is getting the other utilities to cooperate in the most efficient way. But we will be staying on top of this and getting this report out to the council on a regular basis.
Just as a follow-up, you mentioned there could be others. This report is actually from National Grid, correct?
Correct.
So do we have any other utility companies in the city that own poles? Or?
Pretty much. I'm not aware of any other that the Verizon may own, but it's a problem from, I guess my point was it's a problem from community to community. In some communities, Verizon owns the poles, and others it's National Grid that owns the poles. And whoever owns the poles is somewhat at the whim or they need to depend upon the other utility cooperating. Or maybe they can make a deal that, okay, in your community, I'll take down the wires I have, and your community, or my community, you take down yours. But the issue is just getting all the utilities to cooperate in this endeavor.
Yeah, well, bottom line is half of them are ready to be removed,
and
they should be gone.
They've committed to us that they are going to move on those quickly to get those taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. We received a memo on sick buyback, thanks to motion made by Council Kennedy. But I guess my question, Mr. Manager, what is code, I do see code 410 and then code 415. I didn't see what code 400, the explanation, and there was a charge to that.
Offhand, we're not sure what that is tonight. There's only one small amount.
The auditor is aware. She's waving her hand over there.
Adam Auditor.
I apologize to the auditor.
That's okay.
I see 415 is when they accumulate 75 days or more, and then they can buy sick time back. And then 410 is a contractual buyback benefit when employee retires.
400 is actually regular sick leave. It would appear that this is a miscoded sick buyback. So Mr. Moses just grabbed all the raw data. And so actually, when you go back and look at it, it's a miscoded, it should have been a 410.
So it should have been it wasn't a retiree.
Right.
Yeah, it was a charge to a retiree. Oh, okay. And I just had another question. Mr. Moses, what is your last, it says the last statement, most of the usage is by public safety, I get that. Since they work fewer days than other employees, so they are statistically less likely to be on sick on a work day. Can you explain that?
It's just numbers. If you work 4 days on and 6 days off versus 5 days on and 7 days off, you're more likely to be sick if you work more days. And the firefighters work 2 back-to-back shifts, 10 and 14 hours, 24 hours a day. So they're actually on the job roughly half the time everybody else is.
Oh.
So if you're sick 3 times a day, or 3 times a year, chances are less that you're going to be sick at work if you're at work
Less.
half
Well,
the time.
you're not they're still there the same number of hours, they're just.
Correct.
Their work schedule is condensed
But
more.
usually a person is sick all day.
Right.
So, you're sick so many days a year.
And the police work 410s?
They work, no, they work.
On 4,
But they
off
work
2.
4 days on, 2 days off. So they work about 17 days less a year than someone that works a 5-day schedule, 5 and 2. So it's statistically they are working less. They are actually working less hours. Firefighters, I don't know offhand. I haven't done that calculation in a while, but where they work 2 24-hour shifts over an 8-day period, they're working as Mr. Moses said, if you're working, if you're sick on a day, you're only working 2 of those 8 days. The chances of you being sick one of those days is lower.
Okay, so that's why those two total numbers are more. I know I brought this up a number of times. I know these are contractual items, and I know we bring in contracts and we vote for them when there's zero raises, and they're already in the language. At some point, I know you've said that we should have a discussion in executive session, so I don't know when that would be, but it would be good. I'd like to get an update as we mentioned, this report. This is just for last fiscal year, or is that?
That's correct.
684,000 is certainly a significant chunk of change. So at some point, it would be good to get an update as to where we are and, what your strategy is, Mr. Manager, in trying to address this. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion under communications? Councilor Kennedy.
Mr. Mayor, through to the manager. You gave us also a report on the snow and ice.
Yes.
In the snow and ice, we've, on the back, the flip page there, we've got the little charts, the 4 little charts. For FY 2012, the amount for salt, it looks like we spent $51,000 for salt in January and then another $70,000 for salt in December, and another $70,000 in January, and then $107 in February. How does that happen? Why are we, in other words, I can understand stockpiling the salt and buying as much as you think you need all at once at the beginning, but we're buying more and more every month, and that's this winter. So could you just explain how that?
Sure. We do stockpile. We at the beginning of the year, in December, we bought $51,000 worth. That was basically to fill up the sheds again after the storm that took place in October. And like the contractors, there's probably some lag there. Some of the money that was spent in January probably went towards some additional salt that came in December as well. And we do try to keep a supply on hand in the event that there is a winter occurrence. I've been in the unfortunate situation here, as well as the time I was in Chelmsford as manager over there, where the DPW director, in this case, I remember Mr. McCarthy, coming to me in a panic because there was it was February or thereabouts, and we were down in salt because of the number of storms we'd had, and you simply couldn't get it. They were, all of the communities were quickly looking to fill up 18-wheelers and get them up here. So you try to keep as much salt on hand as you can in the event. Now, at this point, clearly, we will not be ordering any more salt for this year, but you do try to keep a supply on hand throughout the year.
And I think that's a good policy. But I guess my question is, in December, we spent, say, $50,000 for salt. So you would think you would try to fill up the bins then. But then a month later, with very little snow, and there may have been some black ice, but nevertheless, we spend $70,000 for salt. And then a month after that, we spent another $40,000 more than that, almost $107,000. So as the winter goes on, I guess these numbers would make more sense to me if they were flipped. And so if we were buying a lot of salt in December and then just replenishing what we had expended as we went through the winter, that makes more sense to me than why we're increasing the amount of salt we're buying every month.
Let me, Mr. Moses has some information he thinks might be helpful.
Actually, what may help you out is to direct you to the last page of that communication. It lists the overtime events. These are just the events that required our own staff to come in on overtime. You'll notice that most of the salting events actually happened in the month of January. So that's when the salt was used most. The storm in October probably didn't use that much salt because it came all at once and it melted very quickly. December, again, it's the first snow, it's going to fall, it's going to melt very quickly. Through the whole month of January, there are 9 or 10 different days where they were out salting. So big orders came in then. They were probably actually paid in February, but the usage was mostly January.
Okay. And who actually puts the salt down? Are those vendors? Are those, or?
Yeah, it's mostly our guys.
With city trucks?
It depends.
City truck, city?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Moses, there was two items on this. One is a reimbursement of $150,000 possibly. When would we get that if we would?
Well, we had a similar reimbursement last year. It actually wasn't as high, and it was for storms in January. You remember the back-to-back storms. That came in June. It's likely that this will come in June, although it's not unheard of to spill over into the next fiscal year. We have to wait for the money. We file through MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management.
Right.
The money actually comes from FEMA, so there's a pass-through.
That was my next question. I saw reimbursement by FEMA at the bottom of the overtime contractor accounts. That would be the money then. Thank you.
Councilman Mendonça.
Regarding snow and ice, if we weren't to get any more freezing events or any snow, are we stocked up now to the point that our inventory is going into the, again, it's a big assumption that there'll be no other storms, as to whether we would have an inventory going into next year so that we would be stocked better than we have been in the past?
I don't know offhand, but I would think that that is the case, that we're probably better, we're certainly better off than we are in most Marches. As you get to this point, you know, you've expended $3 million, you'd probably hope, trying to hold on and not use as much, and this weather tends to be in March to be a little warmer, that you don't really have quite the problems you have when it's, December, January, February. But I would think we're well stocked, and I don't think we can anticipate that we'll have a winter like this again next year. But come next October, November, we should have salt on hand that we won't have to go out and restock at that point in time.
Could you maybe send us an update on this as to if there is information about what the inventory levels were at the end of last year versus where they are so far?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion under responses to city council motions? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Lowry, all those in favor and seconding and placing on file the communications? Opposed? So voted. Next, we have a communication from the city manager, request approval of out-of-state travel for the Lowell Police Department.
So moved.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in, roll call, please.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Lowry.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a resolution in support of House Bill 1111 regarding an act allowing citizens 17 years or older to vote in municipal elections. In City Council resolution, the City Council of the City of Lowell wishes to be recorded in support of House Bill 1111, an act allowing citizens 17 years or older to vote in the City of Lowell municipal elections. The City Council fully supports the pending House bill regarding lowering the voting age for municipal elections in the City Council in the City of Lowell to age 17. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, that we, the members of the City Council of the City of Lowell, wish to be recorded in support of House Bill 1111, an act allowing citizens 17 years or older to vote in the City of Lowell municipal elections. This resolution, adopted by vote of the City Council of Lowell on the 13th day of March 2012, submitted by the City Council of the City of Lowell. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move for approval by Councilor Mercia,
Second.
second by Councilor Lowry. Mr. Clerk?
Councilor Kennedy.
Well,
Present.
Excuse me.
we,
Oh, there's a registered speaker.
yeah,
Colleen Kursky.
Yeah, right here. Okay. My name is Carlene Kirksey, and I'm a teen organizer at UTEC. On behalf of the Vote 17 organizers, we would like to thank City Council for being champions and helping to lead our Vote 17 campaign into the State House. If we get this bill passed, we promise to demonstrate the intentionality of lowering the voting age to 17. We will make sure and encourage teens who are 17 and still in their community that their voices count and they should make a difference by voting. The youth are the root of change, and we are ready to grow for the next generation to come. We want to be able to increase voter turnout, create lifelong civic habits in youth, and to increase youth representation and on our level of participation in our community, Lowell. And that's what we'll do. We'd like to thank Mayor Patrick Murphy, City Council, City Solicitor, and Youth Services Committee for bringing this up, and all the young people in our community for the enduring support and help. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the wish of the council?
There's a motion on the floor, right?
Motion on the floor?
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy.
Present.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Madonza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nguyen.
Yes.
Counsel Broderick.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote in City Council. Accept the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 26, as amended by Chapter 176, Section 34 of the Acts of 2011. Effective February 16, 2012, the stipend for elected and appointed members of the local retirement boards may be increased from $3,000 to not more than $4,500. In order to increase such stipend, the provisions of Chapter 32, Section 26, as amended, must be accepted by a majority of the local legislative body. Pursuant to Council Rule 28, a public hearing must be held at least 1 week prior to this vote. Be it voted by a majority as follows. The City Council of the City of Lowell accepts the provisions of Section 26, Chapter 32, as amended by Chapter 176, Section 34 of the Acts of 2011, a copy of which is marked, attached and marked A.
2 registered speakers.
What's the wish of the council?
Does this, Mr. Mayor, does this now need to be referred to a public hearing, or is that's the way I?
Right.
Right. So I'd move to refer to a public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted.
There's 2 registered speakers on it.
Excuse me. There's 2 registered to speak on the matter.
Bill DeRosas.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. My name is Bill DeRosier, retired member from the Lowell Fire Department and a current elected member to the Lowell Retirement Board. As the mayor said, this issue is part of Chapter 176 of the laws of 2011, and it addresses the increasing the stipend paid to the retirement board members. A couple of facts I'd like the councilors to know is that this is only one small part of that legislation. This legislation, commonly known as the Pension Reform and Benefit Modernization Act, so it really has wide-reaching effects on all retirees and all retirement board members. Some of the issues that directly affect the retirement board, I'd like to point out a couple of them. This legislation mandates that all members of the retirement board attend annual training sessions, up to 18 units of training during our time as members of the retirement board. We have to travel throughout the state at our own, without compensation, to attend these different training sessions, in addition to possibly a conference, the annual conference that we attend. And they address all the different issues, both on the pension reform and on the laws of the pension system itself. In addition, we have to take some a training course on the ethics training. Many of you maybe have had to take that already, but the retirement board members have to take that. We have to file, a new part of this legislation is we have to file a statement of financial interest. And quite honestly, it's a very sensitive issue. There's reported members throughout the state, retirement board members, that are going to remove themselves from this board because of this issue. The Lowell, it isn't as much of an issue. I don't think it's any issue here in Lowell. We've accepted that portion of it, to the best of my knowledge. But it is a very sensitive issue that is part of this legislation that was passed. You know, and I feel this legislation, in addition to that mandated the training and the issues that we have to address, are increased in responsibilities and requirements to be on this retirement board, justifies the increase in the stipend. But in addition to that, if you look at the history of the stipend, my records have shown from the retirement board that this current fee schedule was set up in 1996 and hasn't been changed since then. So in 16 years, it's the same stipend today as it was 16 years ago. And if I could just add on a personal note, you know, the members of the board are not on this strictly for a financial incentive. It certainly isn't enough issue or an incentive there to make the difference. But I know as a personal note, I'd like to be involved on this board. I was involved in the city for a number of years, on the fire department for over 30 years. And when I retired, I got elected to the retirement board so that I would be able to be involved in the city and with my fellow employees and with my fellow retirees. And it's a very rewarding experience. Kind of, I think, similar to the city council, that you folks get your telephone calls at all hours of the day and night. Members of the retirement board, we get calls also. We have to meet with many of our prospective retirees and help counsel them to make the best choice that they can before they come before the board. And it takes a great deal of time. It takes time that we welcome, that this is why we're on the board, but it also takes time from us to educate ourselves so we can try and give the best advice we can. So I think that's the primary reasons why I hope you support the issue. If there's any questions, I'd gladly answer them for you. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Joseph Mahoney.
Yeah, when I was here last week, I'm sorry, Joe Mahoney, 404 Wentworth Avenue, Lowell. And a couple of the councils wanted to know some numbers, but I have the numbers here in front of me. I didn't get a chance to read them last week because I was cut off short with the suggestion they send it to the city solicitor. I didn't understand that, and I still don't understand it. But anyway, I can give you some numbers here that might set you at ease a little bit. We deal with an investment of $227,334. Yeah, $227,300, and that's a lot of money. We're dealing more in the city is, I think. We got people in superannuation. We're sending out checks, average on a monthly basis of $2,400,000 in checks. That's for 174 superannuation retirees, 172 disability, and 18 on ordinary disability, and survivors 196. And the $2,400,000 covers that monthly. We have an average of city employees' retirement contributions of $130,000 weekly. That's for 1,800 plus members, including the 90 employees at the Lowell Housing Authority and 5 employees of the Transit Authority. So we deal with a lot of money here. The retirement board budgeted PARAC last year. We had to send in our budget of $371,000. The stipend increase isn't the biggest deal around town. It's only $7,500, but it's this is our budget and take it out of our budget. This is why I can't understand why we have to come before the city fathers. I asked that question, but they said, well, the state legislature mandated it. But if you got any questions, I can answer them, but.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, I don't have any questions, but I think for the edification of the public, and by way of explanation, this is a process issue. This came in to the council last week by a petition filed, I think, by Mr. Mahoney or other members of the retirement board, which was accepted, referred to the city solicitor to prepare a vote to accept this legislation, which we have now before us. But by council rule, we are required to hold a public hearing, so this vote now is going to be referred to a public hearing. And then even after that, it's got to be held for a week for another vote. So the state legislation requires the local body to adopt it, and there's a process you need to go through to adopt it. It's not efficient or necessarily, the most immediate form, but there are checks along the way for people to voice objections. So not meaning to suggest that there are going to be objections, but maybe there will be. You're right. I agree with many of the statements you made. It's not a significant amount of money compared to the significant increase in the burden, but there is a process that the council has to follow, and that's what we're doing here.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Mendonça?
Yes, if some of this financial information could be provided to the council for the public hearing, as far as how much is dispersed annually to retirees and how much investment income there has been in the last few years, because I know that could change year to year. Just to give us an idea of what those numbers are like.
We can pull that information together for the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Is there an annual report of the retirement board? There is an annual report,
Yes.
so that would probably include everything that we're looking for, including the administrative costs associated with managing this. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the public hearing is when?
That would be probably April 3rd.
And even though we have a public hearing, it still has to be held in the clerk's office probably for a week before we vote.
Correct.
So that's the process. And I know it's frustrating, and that's the reason we have to follow rules too. And it's not like we can just take a vote and grant it or deny it. We have to follow proper procedure.
Yeah, I thought that was going to happen last week, but.
Yeah, but it's red tape of government. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about. Sorry about that.
Councilor Elliott?
Mr. Mayor, just point of information, what is the purpose of, once it's adopted or not, that it goes to the clerk's office for a week? What is the reasoning behind that? That it has to be held for a week?
Madam Solicitor?
Is that a charter issue? Is it
I think it's a charter issue.
it's a council?
Council rules.
It's contained in the council rules. It applies really just to the weaving between the laptops. It applies just to the, anytime there's going to be an acceptance of the general laws, not for other forms of legislation. And there are ways that for the other forms of legislation, the council could actually waive the rules and speed up other aspects. But I believe it's the rationale behind it is, as Councilor Martin was saying, to set up a system of checks and balances. And before, the other thing to keep in mind with respect to the acceptance of the general laws is that by and large, once accepted, there are many general laws that once accepted, you cannot undo that.
Well, I guess that was going to be my follow-up question. If this is accepted, it goes to the clerk's office for a week. What is the purpose of it? I mean, if it cannot be, undone.
No, I'm saying that I think the reason that part of the reason that you go through the process that you go through is that once the council makes a determination on behalf of the city to accept certain general laws, then the city and future councils will live with that decision going forward.
We're holding the public hearing on April 3rd, and then it's voted on the following week.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
If I could, this rule has frustrated me for some time, and I've actually considered filing a motion to consider abolishing our Rule 28. I think what I understand would, you have a public hearing, and then there's kind of a week forced cooling off period before you can take the vote. But at least in my experience here, and it's been a few years now, what really happens is people come down to a public hearing and they speak sometimes very passionately on either side of an issue, and then the council says, okay, thanks for coming down, and we'll vote this next week. So you have to bring if those people are really interested, they have to come back the next week, and it looks like a way that we're trying to avoid a tough vote, which I think in most cases the council would just prefer to go ahead, have the hearing, and vote the issue. So I think it's worthy of consideration to get rid of this rule. I don't know if we can do it in time for this particular matter, but at least I haven't seen the benefit of waiting a week in my time here. Others that have more experience may have seen the benefit of it. I haven't, and so I may maybe file a motion or either amend the one later this evening to also consider changing this rule along with the other rule that's being proposed to be changed.
Any further, Councilman Mendoza?
Just to clarify some of what we're doing, even though the vote says to increase salaries and stipends, all we're actually doing, I believe, is accepting the state language. And that state language then allows, if I'm reading this correctly, that the stipend shall be determined by the commission itself. So it doesn't sound like the city council is setting the stipend, but by adopting this language, we allow the commission to set it somewhere between $3,000 and $4,500. So in essence, we're not actually by a vote of this increasing, but if we accept this language, we allow the commission the ability to increase their stipend if they so wish. I don't know if the solicitor is nodding yes, so I assume that I have interpreted that correctly, just for clarification.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mahoney brought up a good point. Why is the city council voting on it? And I saw that when I read the report. And the only thing I could conclude, and I could be wrong, and maybe you guys know, the city contributes to the retirement fund. The employees contribute, the city contributes, and maybe this is our public hearing. Everyone else gets a chance to come up and speak. This would be our one opportunity. That's the only reason why I could think we would even have a vote here. But that's a question for, if anyone knows the answer.
I think they're putting the council in a position where you're gonna say, well, I don't think you're right, to the legislature. And that's what it comes down to. Wouldn't you say that?
I was baffled myself.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we've already taken the vote, so we'll move on to the...
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Next, we have in City Council a vote. In City Council vote and act relative to payment in lieu of taxation by charitable organizations in the City of Lowell. The City of Lowell seeks authorization to enter into mandatory payments in lieu of taxation with charitable organizations located in the City of Lowell. Such mandatory payments shall cover essential municipal services such as police, fire, and infrastructure utilized by charitable tax-exempt organizations within the city. The City of Lowell is petitioning the General Court for passage of legislation authorizing such a change, and majority vote of approval by the Lowell City Council is required for the filing of such petition. Be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the City Council of the City of Lowell, by a majority vote, authorizes and approves the filing of special legislation to read as follows: an act relative to the payments in lieu of taxation by charitable organizations in the City of Lowell, being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in General Court assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1, notwithstanding Section 5 of Chapter 59 or any other general or special law to the contrary, a charitable organization with property holdings in the City of Lowell that is otherwise exempt from taxation under Clause 3 of Section 5 shall make payments in lieu of taxation on all real and personal property located in the city of Lowell in an amount equal to 25% of that amount that would be paid based on the residential tax rate if the property were not exempt from taxation. Section 2, on or before November 1st of each year, the City Council may meet to set a percentage rate lower than the established rate of 25% of that fiscal year. Section 3, the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the special act unless the City Council approves amendments to the act before an enactment by the General Court. The City Council is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. What's the wish of the council?
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Kennedy.
If I could, I've had discussions with several members of the delegation regarding this, and the city solicitor, I think, has done a good job of tuning up the legislation so that it will be acceptable when it gets to the State House. And so I'd just like to see us move forward with this so that we can have as much of the year down in Boston as possible.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie. Motion by Councilor Kennedy, seconded by Councilor Laurie. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to disclose that I'm on the Board of Directors for Community Teamwork, which is a charitable type of a venue whereby they help the less fortunate. And as a member of that board, I do know that they contribute substantially to the city of Lowell, probably more than what they'd really even have to. But having said that, I'm sure we could still vote. I think what's before us is we're not voting yes or no. We're voting to send this measure to the state legislature, the general, the House and Senate. So having said that, I don't think I'm in conflict of anything.
No, and under those circumstances, there's no financial interest for you, and if anything, you've already made your disclosure.
Thank you.
Councilor Martin.
No, there's no financial interest, but I think a number of us, I serve on boards of charitable organizations, and I think even though there's no financial interest, there's a potential appearance, so I think it's important to disclose that before taking the vote. You know, I also have some substantive questions about this vote as to where, whether it's based on anything. I know the city of Boston is pursuing this, and it's a question for the solicitor whether this is modeled on the Boston Act or some other act, or you know, if we had any guidance from other communities on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager, if you know, that's fine.
Mr. Manager.
I believe that the solicitor drew upon some work that was done, and did some pieces of legislation before the state, the general court right now, and I think, she can speak for herself, obviously, but that served as somewhat of a model.
My question was, I just curious about the genesis of this. How, you know, is this similar to what other communities have tried, or is this modeled on Boston or some other?
It does take into account what Boston's doing. However, in Boston, it's done on a voluntary basis, which is not the direction that Councilor Kennedy and the rest of the council voted to head towards. The challenges that Councilor Kennedy referred to, will this be seen as another form of a tax, or is there a solid argument that what's really being done here is a community seeking to have its out-of-pocket costs compensated, which, generally speaking, does average around 25% for things like police, fire, infrastructure improvements. So there are other municipalities that are working to do this. There's also support from Mass Municipal in this direction as well. And I think it just takes the Boston model, which other communities are utilizing, and takes it a step further, which is what Councilor Kennedy had proposed.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor Laurie and then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to disclose I'm also on the board of CTI, and just to make that public. Thank you.
As in my Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what the solicitor said. I believe Boston is making the case that the private nonprofits there, the schools in particular, use 25%, it should be at 25%, and that's based on calculations that they've made. This is really not based on that, although I would suspect that if we were to do those calculations, it would probably come out to a similar amount. I really just chose 25% and based it on the residential rate because it was a small or not a minimal amount, but a small amount for everybody to pay. And the idea behind this, I think, is to get legislation and to have it be that in tough times when we're faced with increasing taxes to residential taxpayers, that we get everybody in the community to participate, including private nonprofits. As the solicitor mentioned, there is probably half a dozen pieces of legislation trying to do the same thing in different areas, and what I'm hoping is that this legislation will be successful because it's a home rule petition, and that we'll be able to get support from other communities who will maybe rally around us and say, well, if they can do it in Lowell, that will kind of open up the door for us to do it in other communities. And so that's kind of the basis here. There is going to be, and I've had some discussion with members of the delegation, there is going to be an issue about whether or not this will pass constitutional muster. And so the solicitor has done the best that she can to try to tailor it so that it will satisfy that when it gets to House Counsel down at the State House.
Okay. And it does apply to private nonprofits as I read this, right? Not government. Thanks.
Councilman Donza.
Yeah, I believe that this language is somewhat changed and that now we're leaving out state properties. And I was wondering if anyone's done an analysis as, given this language, what's the property value involved and what would be 25% of the real estate tax? I mean, what, if this passed, what would be the effect on the city's income? Any thoughts?
Councilor Kennedy?
The increase, you mean? If this were to pass, the potential increase, I would estimate is probably about maybe $500,000. The Commonwealth was taken out because, and the Commonwealth has a huge amount of property in Lowell, but it was taken out because you can't tax up. So it certainly wasn't going to fly. When I spoke about having it tailored so that it would pass muster down at the State House, it was not, I don't think it would have passed muster if we sent a piece down there that was going to include the Commonwealth of Massachusetts itself. To include the university building authority is a separate thing because that's a separate entity. But the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which has, as I said, a large amount of properties, I suspect most of it is probably out at the Drake State Forest, but they have like a lot of parcels that are assessed for a lot of money.
Yes, well, if that's something that could be generated without too much trouble from the assessor's database, I'd like to know what that number is. I'm also concerned about the assertion that there's some properties that are owned by the authority and how that will be interpreted, because I suspect that's still a state entity that we would not be able to tax. But I'm not sure where that's going to fall out. But again, what this all started in, I think, maybe I'm presumptuous, but a lot of the property went off the tax rolls because the university or Middlesex Community College added to their properties. We haven't seen any large increase that I know of in the charitable nonprofits adding to the number of properties that they own. So in a sense, they are using city services. We should expect some contribution, but I think the list that's left, most of them would be hard-pressed to have their expenses increased in any substantial way.
Thank you. Yep. Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councilor Mendonça, when I say about $500,000, I'm pretty certain of that estimate. That's pretty I have the list from the assessor's office, and so I'm pretty sure that that's what it would be. I think that whether the university is included or it isn't included might be maybe it can't be, but I suspect that it would. However, at the maximum level, the tax to the university for all of their property would be about $90,000. So it's not a huge amount of money even to them. And they might be the biggest one. So this revenue would be raised in small little chunks, but it's still $500,000 that in tough times would be money that the city could use rather than to pass on another tax increase to residents. And this is also an issue that is, although it maybe came up on the agenda here because of the actions that the University of Lowell took regarding the hospital and, St. Joseph's Hospital and the hotel and so forth. This is an issue that's surfacing in several communities throughout the Commonwealth. Besides Boston, a lot of other communities are raising this same issue. So I would expect that we would probably be able to get some support on this legislation from the Mass Municipal Association and maybe from several other communities as well.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It did, I think, originally have some government entities. That's why I asked the clarification that it only applies to charitable organizations. And that, in and of itself, covers a wide gamut. We've had correspondence from the Merrimack Valley Food Bank on record as objecting to this. I'm sure every public charity that owns property is likely going to object to that. But as Councilman Donta said, maybe most of these entities aren't adding property, but they're certainly increasing value. If you look at the things that are going on at the hospitals, we derive great benefit from having most of the nonprofits that we have in the city. And this is not to say that we don't get great benefit from those entities, but it's also, as these institutions mature and develop, it's hard to see them for anything other than a very complex operating business. That should be contributing back something to the services it receives from the city. So, I think there'll be some tension on the smaller end. The smaller groups maybe can't afford this in the budget, but we're at least talking about nonprofits that have the wherewithal to own property here. So there are budgets to run facilities, and if there were a small fee in exchange for the public safety services that are impacted and the other things the city provides, I think that's a reasonable approach for the city to take. It's a substantially discounted rate. It's not at the commercial rate, and this is going to be an uphill fight. This is certainly going to meet great resistance, I would think, at the state level. It's harder and harder to view many of these organizations as, a mom and pop charity. They do great things here in the city, but they also cost money to service. So I think, this is a first step that's worth exploring.
Councilor Mendonça.
I meant to do this before, just in the interest of disclosure. It's not a conflict now because I'm not on the board, but I have in the past been on the board that owned property and was a charitable nonprofit.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Laurie.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Nguyen.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Thank you. Next, we have an order for a 60-day trial in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Reading by title in City Council Order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266-6, entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are implemented for a period of 60 days. Motion by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Mendonça. Roll call, please. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the stop sign on Sixth Street, why is that under a temporary 60-day?
Mr. Manager.
They're put on the temporary, and then they come up for as a permanent in the
Okay.
the update.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendonça.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nguyen.
Yes.
Counsel Broderick.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have a vote in City Council. Order to satisfy operating expenses in the Police Department, ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. The amount of $127,000 be transferred from various accounts within the Police Department budget, more fully described in Attachment A, to various accounts within the Police Department budget, more fully described in Attachment A. Ordered and recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, order to satisfy operating expenses in the Police Department, ordered by the City Council as follows, that the amount of $127,000 be transferred. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Roll call, please.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin.
Yes.
Counsel Mendonça.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
Counsel Nguyen.
Yes.
Counsel Broderick.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next, we have subcommittee reports. The Public Safety Subcommittee met today, the 13th of March. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Subcommittee met this evening to review and make a recommendation on the liquor establishment regulations that were in our packet. We had the special meeting several weeks ago. And to be brief, for the sake of brevity, we came up with essentially two the law department through the administration with the police department and also input from License Commission came up with two new sections adding both general conditions and special conditions. And the general conditions will apply to all of the liquor establishments and any store selling liquor. Special conditions will apply but can be waived upon a special, essentially a special permit. It may not be called that, but can be waived by the License Commission. And it would be, in effect, a system that would be put in place that would allow waivers but wouldn't necessarily be punitive and hopefully be a little bit easier to enforce. And they include all of the chief's recommendations, which I thought I had on my desk, but I misplaced them. The alcohol server training for servers, bartenders, and managers, that's going to be a general condition, which will be mandatory. Video cameras will be a special condition. Patrons may only purchase one drink at a time, per person at a time, would be a special condition. Patrons not allowed to enter an establishment after 1 would be a special condition. All entertainment ends at 1 o'clock would be a special condition. No alcohol service after 1:30 would be a general condition. Lights on at 1:40, general condition. And all promoters now will be required to obtain a special promoting license, which will require a query check. There is also a citizen, the abilities for a citizen to file a complaint with the License Commission to be heard. So overall, a number of, it implements the chief's recommendations and a number of other recommendations that were brought forward at the special meeting, but does allow for, as we heard again this evening from a smaller bar owner, two actually, that run a good establishment that would be financially distressed by implementing all of these conditions as general conditions. So it should allow for everybody to prosper, residents and business people and other business people to cohabitate and move forward. So there was a motion by council in attendance, was myself, Councilor Nguyen, Councilor Elliott, Councilor Rita Mercia, Councilor Marty Laurie, Councilor Mendonça, the manager, the solicitor, Deputy Superintendent Artie Ryan. And upon conclusion, there was a motion by Councilor Elliott to recommend a general endorsement to send these regulations forward to the License Commission for finalization and approval, seconded by Councilor Nunn, and that's before us now to send to License Commission. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really pleased with this document, and what I like most about it is the Section 3, the special conditions feature. I think that was a really good, I think that's just that gives a lot of latitude to the city to handle the present problems and any problems that would come up in the future. Earlier today, I had a discussion with Ryan Wynn regarding Section 5, which is 5.02, which was for taverns. And it's my understanding, and I only bring it up just because I'd like to get it on the record. 502 would roll back the time for alcoholic beverages for taverns back to 1 o'clock. But my understanding is that presently there are no taverns in Lowell, that nobody has a tavern license, although tavern licenses are available. Is that correct? That's right? Okay. So nobody's getting pushed back to 1 o'clock without, okay. That's all.
Okay, Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Talking about taverns, the one time they had to remain closed on Sunday. Will that be the same?
That's one of the distinguishing characteristics of a tavern, is that they close on Sundays. They have different hours, and those hours actually came from the existing regulations that we have right now.
Explains why no one has a tavern license anymore.
That does indeed.
Beyond that, I want to congratulate the people who worked on this. I know the city solicitor, the manager, the police department, the license commission. I was really happy when I read it. I was happy about the waivers, the special conditions for some of the establishments throughout the city. And I was happy, as I said earlier during the meeting, about the entertainers and the Corey licenses, the Corey checks being done on some of these people before they come into the clubs. But I just want to say congratulations and a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one person registered to speak on the subcommittee report.
Nick Petrakis?
Hi, my name is Nick Petrakis, 43 Staple Street, Lowell. I wasn't here for the subcommittee meeting, so the point that I might be trying to make might be moot because I'm not really sure what special considerations or special occasions constitutes or what criteria, who falls under that. But what I was going to come here and say is everyone heard me at the last meeting that the city officials were here, and the residents and the bar owners speak in favor of the chief's recommendations. Well, everybody except for the Lowell Sun that put underneath a picture that I was arguing against them, which was totally erroneous, but I guess that makes for better reading. But anyways, I came because I spoke at that meeting, and I said that I had implemented a lot of things that the chief had said for numerous years with a lot of success. And two of the things that he's since come up with, I've implemented over the last couple of weeks. One being the stopping entertainment at 1 o'clock. The other one being one drink to a person. And I just figured I'd come here because if you implement something just as an analogy to a car or something, basically you want the person who drives that car to come back maybe and tell you how it's been working for them. So not just for me, but I've spoken to the other, just to continue the analogy, the other drivers of the car, the other establishment owners. And I have found a couple problems. By turning the entertainment off at 1, but not turning the lights on till 1:30 and having last call, it increases the number of people that go to the bar. The other way, it's actually kind of detrimental to the effect that we think we want, because it's easier to supervise the people coming to the bar. Just because you have last call at 1:30, everyone doesn't get one. People drift out, you know what I mean? You don't keep serving, otherwise, they have about 5 minutes, the people that are there close by in the proximity. By stopping it at 1, now they have nothing else to do but come to the bar. It's not like they leave. They're going to stay there till you throw them out. So it actually increases the amount of people that are at the bar, which are jamming more people in the same area, so there's more of a propensity for trouble. Not that I've had any, but I just see, you know what I mean, that this is the case. And, they really have nothing else to do but stand at the bar, wherever's when you have the music. And once you do it the first time, people know that that's what's going on, you know what I mean? At first, they might think that you have a problem with the music. That being said, the thing with 1 drink per person, I'm not sure, well, I'm sure the city solicitor knows and whatever, but there are already state regulations on the books. You can only give 2 drinks to a person. You can only give a pitcher of a certain size to a certain amount of individuals, too. So I think what it is, it's more of an adherence to those rules, which I think, is what everyone wants, which would come under the safe serves and the tip certification and all that, rather than, because we had an event at the Chongus Arena, and there was a gentleman who came in with his girlfriend or his wife, and she sat down. He came to the bar to get 2 drinks, and he ordered a beer, and actually it was 2 apple martinis, and the bartender kind of looked at me like, can I hand these? And I nodded, yeah, you know what I mean? But that's why even at the Golden Gloves, I'll be sitting next to someone, and I'll say, a guy will say, want me to run up and grab a couple of beers? And I'll say, yeah, go ahead. So there are already regulations on the books, as you can't go up and get 3, you can't go up and get 4. So as long as people adhere to those rules, or the rules that are already in place, I think we'd be accomplishing. In other words, it's kind of hard when you only give one person a beer when they say, well, I'm getting it for that person right there. And you say, well, I can't really hand it to you. So just, those are only the 2 points that I wanted to bring up as a matter of discussion, you know what I mean, for nothing else. So, like I said, since we're driving the car, I tried it. That's the only problems I saw with it. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. And that was actually a good point by Mr. Petrakis. That discussion did come up at the subcommittee. Commissioner Akazian brought that up, whether we could regulate more strictly than the state. The solicitor gave an opinion that probably. However, this is going back to the License Commission for their final draft and their vote, and that is going to be a point of further discussion. And it would also be, it's listed as a special condition, which means that it wouldn't have to apply to everybody, but you'd have to apply to have it waived. So I think the License Commission will get to that, and whatever's done will be squared away with the ABC, I believe, through them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the report? So we have a motion on the floor by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Laurie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have, under general petitions, miscellaneous, a petition by Patricia St. Hilaire of 70 Elm Street, Lowell, Mass., requesting a handicap parking sign at 70 Elm Street.
I'd like to amend it and ask for a 60-day trial for this particular petition.
Motion by Councilor Mercia as amended, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So vote. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you get to the motions, I've been thinking about the vote on the charitable organization, and I did disclose that I'm a member of several charitable boards. I think that allows me to participate, but I also have clients which are paying, and sometimes charitable organizations, and so for that reason I'd like to switch my vote to present on that vote if that's amenable.
Next we have under motions First motion by Mayor Murphy and Councilor Laurie, request the City Council amend Council Rule 26 to allow citizens and employees of the city to be heard on a matter for questions or general comments without registering a pro or con on that matter. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The mayor and I were talking, Rule 26 says you have to sign to be for or against, pro or con, any item you want to speak for. And we'd like to change it for general conversation. You could come up, ask questions, and not just be pro or con on the matter. And that's the basis of it.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if there's no objection by the makers of the motion, what I'd like to do is amend the motion and refer it to the Rules Committee for a report back. Right. Councilor Martin mentioned earlier that there was a rule that he was disagree with, and then, the Rule 17 where you can speak 2 times. It seems to me that the maker of the motion should get the last word. And so I'd be interested in maybe amending that rule as well. But it might be just, this is probably a good opportunity to review all of the rules and then report back, at the beginning of April.
Sure. Any further discussion on the rule, on the motion as amended? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There also is a rule that says that people cannot speak in this chamber if they don't live in Lowell, or they don't have a business here, or they don't work here. And it's kind of hard for me to say, and we could have done that many a times. I thought about many a times when I didn't agree with what the person was saying, when I could have said, well, incidentally, you don't really have a right to speak here, but I really wouldn't want to do that. Maybe we could amend that, look at that rule, and just in matters that that affect the city, that could apply. That rule could apply to issues that affect the city. I mean, I wouldn't want someone from Tewksbury coming in here telling us how to run our city, and in that respect. But as far as that rule, if we're talking about, I don't know, articles or motions that don't have a very big impact, and someone wants to speak and they happen to not live here or not have a business here or not work here, I'd like to hear what they have to say. It doesn't mean that they're weighing in, but that should be looked at too, because I hate to say, you don't have a right to speak. This isn't my building. This is like everybody's building.
It's actually the same rule, Rule 26, so
Right.
I'm sure we can include,
Sure, look at that.
business owners or something to that effect as well. Any further discussion? Councilor Laurie.
The only problem, we talked about this earlier, people coming from out of town, and I generally don't have a problem with it, unless it's on budgetary issues. They shouldn't really be coming in telling us how to spend our money, or what we should spend it on. I really have a problem with that. And, but yeah, it's good to look at it and take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have a motion by Councilor Mercier, request the city manager have the proper department amend the zoning ordinance of the city of Lowell regarding notice to abutters.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is relatively speaking for itself, but in this particular issue, that this motion asks that the zoning ordinance of the city of Lowell be amended to provide that no building permit shall be issued for the construction of a building prior to the notification of abutters within 500 feet of the property line of the property, subject to any application for permit, provided that any such abutter shall be given 10-day notice before the issuance of such permit. No action shall be taken upon such permit until the applicant has proof of such notice. And here we could say, we're adding another fee to the contractors. We're probably adding another $10. How much is it to print all these papers and have them go around 500 feet? I'm not saying this is set in stone, but it's just another means to protect neighbors in neighborhoods. I'd like to just refer this to the zoning board, just to for a report or recommendation or what they think of this. I'm not saying this should be the law, but if they could just look at it again and see what they think about this motion.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick and then the manager.
I'm in favor. I was going to recommend we send it to the subcommittee because I know we have different notice requirements, and some require signage on the property and so on. So just to make sure it all kind of gels together, it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercier?
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, you know, we do have signage on property when people are doing something like building something, and it's the size of like a square. And my God, people would go by and never even notice that it exists, but I thought it had to be a certain size, big enough so people would get the attention of people, but I don't know.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
The other place I would suggest the council refer this to is the solicitor's office for some legal review as well. If a property meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, they have certain property right. I would think that they'd have certain property rights to move forward without delay. But it's just a legal question I think we have to look at. We do already have the requirement that a sign has to be put up, a larger sign than just the building permit sign. But I would just suggest that might be something we'd want to take a look at as well.
It's another means of being informative.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm asking for,
Yep,
that people know what's going on in their neighborhood.
Right.
That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking.
it may be a case of, if I may, Mr. Mayor, it may be a case that there has to be notification, but not necessarily delay. Again, if they meet all the requirements, delaying may have some consequences, whereas if it's just notification, that there'd be some type of notification process. But those are all questions that really can be taken up at another venue.
There's no delay. They don't have to put it in the clerk's office for a week like we do on certain things here,
Right,
but
right.
I'm only saying that.
Any further discussion on the motion?
So just, is this
Councilor
referred to the zoning board of appeals or the zoning subcommittee? As I understood it was the board of appeals, right? That's what you asked?
That was the zoning board.
Right. The
Right.
zoning board and the solicitor for feedback, right?
Right.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.